Shalom and welcome to the History of Judaism, the history and story of the Jews. Told by me, Yossi Silverman, licensed tour guide and Jewish educator. This podcast is only possible with your contributions. To learn more about that, remember to stay tuned for the end of the podcast while I explain how you can contribute. But for today, we're going to be discussing Gedalya, the son of Achikam, or Gedalya ben Achikam, however you want to say it, to explain what happened last time. Well, last time, it was the 9th of the Hebrew month of Av, or round about that time, and we burnt down the temple. Well, we didn't. The Babylonians burnt down the temple. They burnt down Jerusalem. They carried everybody away into captivity. They exacted such a virulent and violent response to the rebellion against them that the entire city of Jerusalem burnt down, and you can see to this day a destruction layer from that period, from the period of the destruction of Jerusalem in 586. We're now discussing the period just after that with the rule of a courtier called Gedalya, the son of Achikam. We're going to discuss who he is. Why should you actually fast on the Fast of Gedalia? There's a Fast of Gedalia. What's the story there? What happened? What are all the historical supports for this? We're not so much dealing in mirror narratives because there's no formal narrative as such, but there's plenty of archaeological evidence that we can discuss about Gedalya, the son of Achikam. But first, I'd like to express something about, I sometimes like to connect current modern Jewish experience with the history. So modern Jewish experiences, in about a month's time, Jews are going to celebrate the Jewish New Year. It's going to be what's called the 1st of Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, as it's known in Hebrew, the Jewish New Year, the head of the year. And a little bit after Rosh Hashanah, there's a fast day, and I have to say, easiest fast in the whole calendar. Really easy fast. You've been stuffing yourself non-stop for 2 days. Jewish New Year's 2 days. And then you have to do the Fast of Gedalia. It's a little bit of a joke, really. I know many people who don't do the Fast of Gedalia. They say, Gedalia, wasn't he some kind of like patsy or something? Wasn't he put there by the Babylonians? Why should I fast for Gedalia? Gedalia wouldn't fast for me. Come on. Fast of Gedalia, got to be kidding. Well, today we're actually going to learn a little bit about the Fast of Gedalia and why maybe you should be fasting on Gedalia. We're going to learn about the horror, the sheer horror that is Gedalia, the son of Achikam, and what happened to him. That's more, the horror is what happened to him. So, who is this Gedalia, the son of Achikam? To state the blindingly obvious, Gedalya, the son of Achikam, as the name suggests, is the son of a guy called Achikam. It actually means my brother get up. But yes, Achikam is the son of a gentleman called Shaphan. Now that is significant because Shaphan, at least people connected to Shaphan, are mentioned in both the Bible and archaeology. If you tuned into the podcast about prophecy and Jeremiah and subsequent podcasts, you might understand that the whole house of David, you understand that the whole fall of the house of David and destruction thing is to a certain extent a family affair. Like, for example, Jeremiah, the prophet, is both the prophet, the court prophet, and the grandfather of Zedekiah, the last king. Now, so Gedalya, he's also got a connection. That's not a surprise. These are nobles. Gedalya is the nephew of Gemariyahu ben Shaphan, the scribe who recorded Jeremiah's words. The words that got to Jeremiah into all of that trouble. And also to weave the archaeology into this, if you go to the city of David, they have this wonderful part in what's supposed to be the palace, arguably the palace of King David, where they found a Bulla, I actually met the guy who found the Bulla, the stamp of Gemariyahu ben Shaphan, as we mentioned, who was a scribe. And he had a Bulla, he had a stamp. To just review what that means is you write a letter 2,000 and more years ago and you seal it with a lump of clay or a piece of wax, normally a lump of clay. That's why we can find it, because it hardened. And you stamp it with your special seal. And the seal said, Gemariyahu, the son of Shaphan. It has been suggested that it just was another guy called Gemariyahu, the son of Shaphan, who happened to be living in Jerusalem 2,700 years ago, and not the specific one mentioned in the Bible. Okay, whatever, fine. Okay, if you want to be just that minimalist with your archaeology, great, good, fine, wonderful, hooray. So he's a Jerusalem court guy, he's a courtier. He also seems to hold some sway with this group known as the Am Haaretz. Why is that? Well, one, he's got to hold sway with them. They're the only ones left. Everybody else has been carried away into captivity. Also, they aren't so happy with Jeremiah. They want to, do things to Jeremiah. Gedalya stops them. So he's an influential guy with the Am Haaretz. Just a thing to explain, when we say Am Haaretz, that normally means people of the land. He holds sway with the people of the land. That doesn't necessarily mean they're like local yokels, farmers and such. Like in podcast 11, we had a whole discussion about that. They could have been like an estate, a kind of significant part of the Jerusalem court. Important geographical note. Gedalya rules not from Judah. Judah is that's it, trashed. He rules from Benjamin. He rules from a place called Mitzpeh. Mitzpah. Quick geographical note so we know where we're talking about. Firstly, there's a lot of antagonism between Judah and Benjamin. Benjamin has the first king, Saul or Shaul, and Judah has the most known king, David or David, King David. And there's a lot of antagonism between them. Even in like the earlier stories in Genesis, there's a kind of a friction between Judah and Benjamin. Where are the borders of Judah and Benjamin? So if you go to Jerusalem, hopefully you'll join me on a tour in Jerusalem. See scoutisrael.com and send me messages when tourism comes back. But if you do go to Jerusalem, you go to the around the Temple Mount area, the southern part of the 10th corner, the southern part of the Temple Mount area, that is the most northerly border of Judah. The temple kind of sits on the border to a certain extent. And it stretches all the way down to the Negev. That's all Judah. Some people say somewhere inside that is the tribe of Shimon, of Simeon, of Simon, but nobody really knows what happened to the tribe of Simon. So it's all Judah. Benjamin is everything stretching up north. Benjamin is a higher altitude, at least than the kind of Jerusalem area. It looks down onto Jerusalem. A lot of the areas mentioned in Benjamin seem to have names talking about being in a high place. You've got Mitzpah, which means outlook. You've got Give On, which Gev'ah or Give On is a high place. There's also Ramot, which also is another kind of high place, a high, we're talking about a plateau. All these are different high areas inside Benjamin. So the story goes, he moves everybody to Mitzpah. The text mentions a whole group of nobles who in fact join Gedalia in Mitzpah. We've got Yishmael, the son of Netaniah. We've got a guy called Yochanan, the son of Kareach. We've got also a guy called Jaazanya, or in Hebrew, Jaazanya, the Maccatite, or the son of the Maccatite. That must be a place, Ma'akah. Jaazanya ben HaMaccati, and all their men. They have all a retinue, all these different important people. Why do I mention these names? Well, Jaazanya is significant because found in a site known as Tel En Natsbeh, which is thought of as being a biblical mitzpah. They found a Bulla, another stamp, a really quite beautiful one with like a kind of chicken on it, or sort of rooster, with the name Jaazanya. So we've got Jaazanya, all these important people, and he gathers them all there. They're not there all the time because the text gets a bit confusing, because otherwise the text doesn't make sense. But so they come in and out of Mitzpah, doing the usual court noble business with Gedalya, the son of Achikam. The story goes, first guy I mentioned, Yishmael, the son of Netanya, is heads back to court. So they were coming in and out of court. He heads back to court, and he goes into court and he demands a audience with Gedalia. So he has his audience with the Gedalia, with all the courtiers there, and he's standing in front of Gedalia, and he has with him 10 men, and all the doors are closed, and Yishmael, the son of Netanya, just goes crazy. He just slaughters every single person he can find. He slaughters Jews. He slaughters the Chaldean, Babylonian emissaries who are also there with Gedalia. He slaughters the Am Haaretz. He slaughters everybody. Just goes crazy. And then he's there floating around Mitzvah for a while after his massive massacre. And a group of people come to bring tribute. And they bring all these goodies, frankincense, all that stuff. For some reason, in biblical stories, people are always bringing frankincense. Don't ask me why. It smells nice. That's why. So these people are coming to Mitzpah with all these wondrous things, and grain and frankincense and stuff. And they come into the court. They meet Yishmael, the son of Netanya, and Yishmael, the son of Netanya, sees all this big group and slaughters them too. He wipes them out as well. He throws all the bodies into a massive pit. 10 men he saves from this group because this 10 men promise him to give him also a tribute. And then he's heading out of Mitzpah, and he has the gall to tell everybody that it's terrible. Something terrible has happened to Gedalia. As he goes along his way, he's like, something terrible has happened to Gedalia. Gedalia's been viciously slaughtered, and everybody else, who knows who by. And eventually the last noble, Yochanan, the son of Kareach, catches up with him at a place called the Waters of Givon. Only the followers of Yishmael are massacred. Yishmael himself gets away to Ammon. After that, all the people flee to Bethlehem. Why they do that? Well, Bethlehem's in the south and is actually considered to be, at least in the text, on the way to Egypt. And they meet Jeremiah, who for some reason is in Bethlehem, and Jeremiah encourages them not to make an exodus, a backwards exodus to Egypt. They beg him to do that because they are scared that the Babylonians are going to come and wipe them all out. The suggestion is that Yishmael, the son of Netanya, is actually on the pay of the king of Ammon, who is one of the surrounding countries, and he wants to take advantage of this also. He kind of encouraged Yishmael, the son of Netanya, to commit this crime. Everybody's worried about the Ammonites. Everybody's worried about the Babylonians coming back. Jeremiah says, don't worry about the Babylonians. Everybody says, that's because you're a Babylonian patsy. I have to see, am I actually using patsy in the correct sense? Hold on a second. Let's have a look. Let's see, am I using the word patsy correct? A person who is easily taken advantage of, especially by being cheated or blamed for something. Okay, fine. She was there, the patsy. He's the patsy of the Babylonians. You're easily led astray by the Babylonians, Jeremiah. And so Jeremiah says, fine, go down to Egypt, but I predict, I prophesy that Babylon is coming through soon to destroy Egypt. And that's actually an argument whether that happens. Actually, possibly in 568, they come to take over Egypt. And he also mentions the name of the towns that they're going to go to. They're going to go to Migdol and to Tachpenes and Noph in the land of Patros. And next time we're actually going to discuss the first diaspora, the first movement of Jews outside Israel to all these different places. So the archaeology. The first thing to mention about this story and the archaeology is there's an argument. And the argument is many people suggest that biblical Natsbeh is in fact not Tel en Natsbeh, but actually a place called Nabi Samuel. Nabi Samuel, you might have understand from the way it sounds, is Navi Shmuel, the prophet Samuel, a site, actually religious site with Jewish and Muslim and Christian structures in it, which is dedicated to the prophet Samuel. And the suggestion is that was biblical Natsbeh. The only issue with that is none of the archaeology, and there has been digging there, is from this era, is from the I think it's Iron 2, late Iron 2, Iron 3, about 500, just after 586. There's no archaeological evidence there. There is in Tel en Natsbeh. Also in Tel en Natsbeh, most sites in Judah, you have a destruction layer from 586. Not in Tel en Natsbeh. It just carries on. So there we go. So possibly biblical Natsbeh. Another thing with Tel en Natsbeh, apart from having the stamp of Jaazanya, is its location. The location of Tel en Natsbeh. The suggestion by a guy called Jeffrey Zorn is that Mitzpeh is meaning lookout, is actually what's called a toponym. The name defines the topography of where it is, and if you go to Tel en Natsbeh, apparently it looks down on like the road to Jerusalem, so that would be a good indication. Also Natsbeh, maybe the N could be swapped for an M, and in Arabic the P sound doesn't exist. P is normally swapped for a B. So Natsbeh maybe became Natsbeh. That's my suggestion as well. And also another thing is there were storage jars, and the storage jars maybe were stamped with the word Mitzpeh on it. It's not clear. It was definitely a mem stamped on the jars, a m sound, and maybe a tzadi, a tz sound, maybe a shin, is not entirely sure, and maybe a pei, and that's not entirely sure. It's a possibility. Also in Tel en Natsbeh, massive cisterns. We talked about Yishmael, the son of Netanya, throwing everybody into a massive pit. Yeah, that's there in Tel en Natsbeh. So I'd like to claim the site actually holds up the story. The site is our story. The site is our mirror text. That this is the doomed place of the massacre of Yishmael, the son of Netanya. And I would like to say that's exactly why we fast. We fast because it was a horrendous massacre which drove fear into the hearts of the Judeans. Absolute fear. People ran. People fleeing to Egypt because they were scared they were going to be wiped out by the Babylonians for this terrible deed. There is, of course, another thing which is very popular at the moment, and this popular thing is alternate histories. Imagine Gedalia wasn't killed. What would have happened to the course of Jewish history? Now, admittedly, that this might be something you're going to have to do after listening to all the podcasts I'm going to make. But one thing that's fairly clear, is that Judaism, after the exile from Babylon, is very much dominated by things people acquired in Babylon. I'm going to claim that might be less actually the case, were it not for the fact that Gedalia died. The same can be said about Egypt. There's like almost a friction between Babylonian Jews and Egyptian Jews. Well, none of this would be there if many of the Am Haaretz stayed in Judah and didn't go down to Egypt. The Jewry that it's going to exist later on is going to be a Jewry affected by things that they picked up outside the land of Israel. And this is going to be true also with later diasporas, later dispersals out from Israel. And not having a kind of home base is going to be an issue. People are going to come in to fill the void as well. We're going to get that with the Samaritans. So this whole business with Gedalya being assassinated is very, very serious. And I think you still feel the echoes of some of the fear later on in the history. The fear of upsetting a great empire, of waking a bear. So that's where we are right now. The story of Gedalya really changes the course of Jewish history. It is an important moment, as well as the destruction in 586, the slaughter of Gedalya, the son of Achikam, and the residents of Natsbeh. Thank you very much for listening. You've been listening to The Story of Judaism. This podcast is brought to you by kind contributions. It might have, if you've been listening to earlier podcasts, you might understand that I am an out-of-work tour guide. All my work has gone. I am relying on work in childcare and work on archaeological sites, and also contributions from my podcasts and my YouTube. If you want to help the podcast monetarily, you can visit ko-fi.com/scoutisrael, or you can visit patreon.com/scoutisrael. And if you want to do something for free, and I understand free because we're all suffering at the monetarily in the time of Corona, please feel free to hit subscribe on whatever platform you're using to listen to me on, or leave a good review, whatever good thing you can do in that sense. And please go right now to my YouTube channel, Scout Israel, and hit subscribe there. Watch one of the many wonderful videos, both on the subject of Jewish history and Israel and touring Israel and all the wonderful things you can see, and hit subscribe right there, and that would be very much appreciated. And as I said, only surviving right now as a podcast due to your contributions. We have some wonderful donors who've contributed, and thank you very much to them as well. You have been listening to the History of Judaism, the history and story of the Jews. My name is Yossi Silverman, and you've been wonderful.